The human body comes with an instruction manual, a genetic code that defines everything about us, from our hair color to the way our heart beats. For decades, scientists believed they had deciphered this manual, but they ran into a massive problem. 98% of this code seemed to make no sense at all, just scrambled letters. They called these pages junk DNA, evolutionary debris, copying errors accumulated over millions of years. Basically, trash. This idea always seemed strange, considering nature is usually very efficient. Why would it keep such a gigantic amount of useless material inside every single one of our cells? This doubt persisted for a long time without a satisfactory answer. To solve this mystery, we fed our artificial intelligence, Axiom, with this data. The mission was to analyze this 98% of genetic code and discover if it was really waste or something else. The result of the analysis changed our understanding of who we are. What seemed like noise, in fact, behaved exactly like a language. The system found a clear and repetitive pattern in these sequences, a structure that obeys a rule known as Zipf's law. This law is the signature of any human language. If you count the frequency of words in a book, whether in Portuguese or any other language, you will find this exact pattern. It is the mark of an intelligent message. The sound of the wind or the patter of rain do not follow this law because they are random. Our junk DNA, however, does. Axiom calculated the chance of such a complex structure, mimicking a language, having emerged through random mutations over millions of years. The number is practically zero. The probability is 1 in 10, followed by 140 zeros. To give you an idea, the chance of a tornado sweeping through a junkyard and assembling a functional Boeing 747 is higher. Evolution, as powerful as it is, does not write books. It scribbles, tests, and erases. What we have here is a well-written text. The analysis went deeper and found other disturbing similarities. Our genetics use 4 chemical letters to give instructions and possess clear commands for start reading and stop reading, which tell the cells exactly where an instruction begins and ends. This ensures that proteins are built correctly. But the most impressive data point was the discovery of giant blocks of instructions that appear to have been switched off on purpose. It is like finding, in an instruction manual, entire chapters crossed out, yet still legible. Instead of broken or defective genes, we found functions that were intentionally deactivated. The system ran a simulation to see what would happen if some of these functions were turned back on. The models showed that these dormant instructions contained the potential for things we consider science fiction, such as the ability to regenerate lost limbs, a near-perfect immunity against all known viruses, and even the ability to drastically slow down the aging process. Someone at some point seems to have put a padlock on our potential. This leads us to something disturbing. We are not the final and glorious product of evolution. On the contrary, we appear to be a limited version of something that could have been much greater, a demo version of the human being. If we are a limited version, who limited us and why? The answer lies not only in what was written in our genetics, but also in what was physically altered in its structure. If our genetic code was edited like a text, the marks of that editing should be visible, not just in the switched-off instructions, but in the physical structure that holds them. And that mark exists. It is so obvious that it is baffling we do not see it as the anomaly it is. The proof is in the count of our chromosomes. All our closest primate relatives, chimpanzees, gorillas, orangutans, possess 48 chromosomes organized into 24 pairs. We humans have 46 in 23 pairs. Where did an entire pair of chromosomes go? In biology, things do not just disappear like that. Losing genetic material on this scale is almost always a death sentence. A mutation that simply deleted 2 chromosomes would create a non-viable being that would not survive, let alone give rise to a new species. Mainstream science explains that at some point in our past, 2 chromosomes from a primate ancestor fused end to end, creating a single large chromosome. This event supposedly gave rise to our lineage with 46 chromosomes. It sounds reasonable until you look at the details. The Axiom system analyzed the evidence of this fusion, and what it found does not look like an accident of nature, but rather the scars of molecular surgery. Every chromosome has a specific structure. At their tips, There are protective sequences called telomeres, like the plastic tips of a shoelace which prevent everything from unraveling. In the center, there is a region called the centromere, essential for cell division. A normal chromosome has telomeres at both ends and one centromere in the middle. Our second chromosome, the giant that is supposedly the result of the fusion, breaks all the rules. Exactly in the middle of it, where the fusion would have occurred, we find remnants of telomeres. Telomeres should not be in the middle of a chromosome. Their presence there is like finding the tips of two shoelaces tied in the middle of a larger shoelace. It is the physical proof of the junction point, but the strongest evidence is something else. A functional chromosome can only have one centromere. If it has two, the cell would self-destruct during division. And our second chromosome has two centromeres. One of them works normally, but the other is there, perfectly intact, just switched off. Nature does not work this way. Random mutations break things. They do not keep spare parts with such care, nor perform a clean job of deactivating components with surgical precision. This is the mark of design, of deliberate engineering. Now the question shifts from how to why. Why would anyone go to the trouble of fusing two chromosomes, altering the very basis of our biology? The analysis of the genes located exactly in the fusion zone reveals a pragmatically terrifying purpose: control. In this specific region, there is a high concentration of genes responsible for the development of muscle mass, physical strength, and even bone density. In chimpanzees, these genes operate at maximum capacity, which explains why a chimpanzee is 5 to 6 times stronger than an adult man. In us, these same genes are damaged or suppressed exactly at the weld point. We were weakened. We lost the brute strength of the primates and our bodies became more fragile. This modification, besides weakening us, also isolated us. With a different number of chromosomes, we became unable to breed with any other primate species. We were placed in a genetic quarantine, a separate and controlled lineage. It is the same process seen in the domestication of animals. A wolf is stronger, more aggressive, and has a larger brain than a dog. The process of domestication made it more docile, more dependent, and physically inferior to its wild ancestor. We are in practice domesticated primates. The moment this surgery occurred coincides perfectly with the sudden emergence of Homo sapiens about 200,000 years ago. There is no gradual transition. We simply appear in the fossil record, already with our 46 chromosomes and a more fragile body. We were created for a purpose. Except this theory has a huge hole. If the goal was to limit us, weaken us, and turn us into docile servants, why at exactly the same time were we equipped with a brain of unprecedented power and complexity? Why give a farm animal the capacity to understand the universe? This upgrade makes no sense in the context of simple domestication, unless the brain was not a gift, but a tool with a terrible cost. The contradiction is clear: a body weakened on purpose, but equipped with the most complex and powerful brain we know. It is like putting a race car engine in a lawnmower chassis. The structure was not made to support the power, and in fact, ours was not. The human brain is not a harmonious gift of evolution. It is a dangerous anomaly, a part that costs too much for the body that carries it. First, look at the energy consumption. An adult's brain represents only 2% of the total body mass, yet it consumes 25% of all the energy we ingest. 1/4 of everything you eat goes straight to feeding this thinking machine. In comparison, the brain of other primates uses only 8% of their energy. From the perspective of survival in the wild, where food is scarce, having such a hungry organ is a disaster. The process of natural selection should have eliminated individuals with larger brains, as they would be the first to die of starvation. However, the opposite happened. About 250,000 years ago, the size of the human brain tripled in an evolutionary blink of an eye. This leap has no natural explanation. An organ does not grow in anticipation, waiting to become useful one day. It grows because it is absolutely necessary for immediate survival. Such an expensive brain could only have developed if our ancestors had a constant and guaranteed food source, something that freed them from the pressure of natural selection. Someone seems to have subsidized the cost of this upgrade. And the energy problem is not even the worst part. The highest price appears at the time of birth. Human beings are the only species on the planet for whom giving birth is a routinely dangerous and excruciating process. The reason is a basic engineering conflict. To walk upright, our pelvis became narrower. At the same time, our brain, and consequently the skull, became huge. A baby's head can barely pass through the mother's pelvis. Nature does not make such gross design errors. Evolution always finds a balance. Here, that balance does not exist. There is a violent conflict between two imposed characteristics, walking upright and a giant brain. To get around this, human babies are born with the skull still soft and disassembled, bone plates that fold and overlap to pass through the birth canal. It is a desperate solution to a fundamental design problem. The Axiom simulation indicated that human childbirth represents a critical compatibility failure. Natural evolution would never create a reproductive mechanism that threatens to kill both the mother and the child as a standard procedure. This conflict leads us to another problem. We are born unfinished. A newborn foal stands up in minutes. A chimpanzee infant clings to its mother immediately. A human baby is completely helpless. It cannot support its own head, cannot feed itself, cannot move. It needs years of intensive care just to reach basic autonomy. Biologically, to be born at the same stage of development as other primates, a human baby would need to spend at least another 12 months in the womb. But that is impossible. Its head would be so large that birth would become fatal. So, we are born prematurely. We are forced to leave the womb before we are ready, because the part installed in our head is too big for the exit door. And to top it off, there is the temperature problem. A powerful processor generates a lot of heat. The human brain is a furnace. To prevent it from overheating, our body needed a radically new cooling system. We are the only primates without a dense covering of fur. The official explanation says we lost our fur to keep cool while running on the savanna, but this idea does not hold up. Most savanna animals have fur, which protects them from both the scorching sun during the day and the cold at night. Losing this protection left us vulnerable. The true reason for being naked apes is that our skin, with its millions of sweat glands, is a radiator. We traded our natural protection for a liquid cooling system, all to stop the brain from boiling inside the skull. Our body was patched and forced to adapt to this new super-powered part. We pay a terrible price in energy, pain, and vulnerability. The question that remains is, for what task would a weakened slave need such an expensive and dangerous tool? If the brain is the tool, where is the instruction manual explaining its true purpose? If our body is a tool and our brain a complex and expensive component, then there must be an operations manual somewhere, a guide that explains the purpose of such a contradictory creation. And that manual exists. It is not etched in our genetics, but on baked clay tablets in the ruins of the oldest civilization we know, Sumer. For centuries, we read these stories as myths, legends about gods who descended from the sky. But when you strip away the poetic language and analyze the content as a technical report, a completely different story emerges. The history of humanity is, in many ways, the history of our obsession with a single metal, gold. We kill for it, build empires in search of it, and base our entire economy on it. But why? For a primitive human fighting for survival, gold is useless. It is too soft to make a tool or a weapon. You cannot eat it. It offers no shelter. A piece of iron or a handful of seeds would have infinitely greater value. Yet from the beginning, we were programmed to desire gold above all else. This irrational obsession is the first clue. The Axiom system analyzed gold not as a symbol of wealth, but as an industrial material. The listed properties are revealing. Gold is a nearly perfect electrical conductor that does not oxidize, ideal for long-lasting circuits. It is the best reflector of infrared radiation in existence, protecting against heat and solar radiation. It is chemically inert and in the form of nanoparticles, has revolutionary applications in planetary engineering. The conclusion is clear. For an advanced civilization, gold is not money. It is a strategic technological resource, essential for space travel and primarily for repairing a planet's atmosphere. And that is exactly what the Sumerian texts describe. The creatures they called the Anunnaki, those who from heaven to earth came, did not arrive here on a mission of exploration. They came with a desperate problem. Their home planet's atmosphere was deteriorating, and they needed enormous quantities of gold to spray into their stratosphere, creating a shield that would reflect sunlight and contain heat. Earth was a mine, a deposit rich in the resource they needed. Initially, they tried to do the heavy lifting themselves, but mining is a brutal task. The texts describe a rebellion by the Anunnaki working class who refused to continue the labor. They needed a substitute. They needed a biological worker, intelligent enough to follow complex orders, but strong enough to withstand the effort. So they created us. The texts describe in almost clinical detail how they took a primate already existing on Earth and mixed its genetic material with theirs to create the Adam, the first worker. If this story is true, the evidence should be on the ground. And it is. The oldest and most extensive gold mines in the world are not Roman or Egyptian. They are in southern Africa, and the dating of these mines is the missing link. Some are over 200,000 years old. This coincides perfectly with the moment Homo sapiens suddenly appears on the world stage. We did not evolve in Africa by chance. We were created in Africa, exactly where the gold was most abundant and exactly when they needed miners. We were custom-made for the mission. This finally explains the super-developed brain. It was not for writing poetry. It was for understanding geology, metallurgy, and logistics. It was to be an efficient worker. Here, things stop making sense. If we were designed specifically to work on this planet, why does our body seem so poorly adapted to it? Why does Earth's environment cause us so much pain and disease? A good engineer designs a tool to function perfectly in its work environment. Ours, however, looks like it was made for somewhere else. We refer to Earth as our home, as Mother Nature. But if she is our mother, why does she seem to be constantly trying to harm us? Look at any wild animal. A bear is perfectly adapted to the forest, a camel to the desert. They are part of the ecosystem. The human being, on the other hand, seems like a stranger on his own planet. Without our houses, clothes, and technology, the vast majority of us would not survive for very long. We are biological outsiders, and the proof lies in the chronic diseases and physical problems we consider normal. Start with gravity. Our bones and muscles evolved under its constant influence, or at least they should have. The truth is that over 80% of the world's adult population suffers from chronic back pain. Herniated discs, scoliosis, lumbar problems. These are not diseases of old age, they are design flaws. Our spine was designed to function horizontally, like a suspension bridge, distributing the weight of the organs evenly. It is the perfect structure for an animal that walks on all fours, but at some point, we were forced to stand up. This change turned the bridge into an unstable tower. All the weight of our head and torso now compresses the base of the spine. It is a constant overload for which our discs and vertebrae were not designed. The same happens with our circulatory system. The human heart has to fight gravity to pump blood back up from the legs, a tremendous effort that often leads to varicose veins and circulation problems, conditions almost non-existent in other animals. Our body seems to be in a constant battle against the very planet it lives on. Axiom's calculations regarding the ideal gravitational force for our structure indicated that the human body would function optimally in an environment with about 40% less gravity than Earth. This would relieve the pressure on the spine, reduce the load on the heart, and decrease joint wear. It is a remarkable coincidence that the gravity on Mars is approximately 38% of Earth's, falling almost exactly within this ideal range. The second major incompatibility is with our own star. The sun is the source of all life on Earth, but for us, it is an enemy. We are the only species that needs to actively protect itself from its rays. Our naked, hairless skin is extremely vulnerable to ultraviolet radiation. Even populations with the darkest skin are not fully protected. Evolution should have given us a natural defense against the star of our own solar system. Instead, it left us exposed and fragile. It is as if we were designed to live under a weaker sun or on a planet with a much denser ozone layer. The third anomaly lies in our internal clock. All living beings on Earth have a circadian rhythm synchronized with the planet's 24-hour rotation. Our clock, however, is broken. Isolation experiments consistently show that the natural cycle of the human body is not 24 hours, but approximately 25. Every day our body wants the day to last an hour longer. We are forced to constantly readjust to Earth's rhythm, which creates a state of constant jet lag. This desynchronization generates sleep problems, stress, and chronic fatigue. Once again, a strange coincidence arises. The day on Mars lasts 24 hours and 39 minutes, a value almost identical to our natural biological cycle. Our digestion, our immune system with its inexplicable allergies, our inefficient reproduction, the list of incompatibilities goes on. Every piece of evidence points in the same direction. We are not from here. Or at least, the final version of our design was not calibrated for this environment. We were assembled with parts from different origins, resulting in a being that fits perfectly nowhere. This mixture of origins can be seen in the clearest and most fundamental way possible flowing in our veins. Human blood is not uniform. It divides us into two distinct groups, so fundamentally different that conventional biology struggles to explain it. The anomaly is in the Rh factor. Most of humanity, about 85%, possesses this protein in their red blood cells. We are Rh positive. This factor connects us directly to other primates, like the rhesus monkey. It is the signature of our terrestrial heritage. But 15% of the world's population simply does not have this protein. They are Rh negative. From an evolutionary standpoint, this makes no sense. If we all evolved from the same ancestor, we should all have the Rh factor. A mutation could alter it, but deleting it entirely is an unprecedented anomaly. The real problem happens when these two lineages mix. If a woman with Rh negative blood gets pregnant by a man with Rh positive blood, and the fetus inherits the father's blood, the mother's body identifies her own child as an invader. Her immune system begins to produce antibodies to attack and destroy the fetus, as if it were a virus. Biology knows of no other case in nature where a mother's body wages war against her own offspring. Lions and tigers can crossbreed, but between humans, there is an internal immunological barrier. The conclusion of the axiom system is that the Rh conflict is not a simple dysfunction, but the mathematical proof that Rh positives and negatives are, for all intents and purposes, two subspecies with distinct origins. One of them is native to this planet. The other is not. The geographic distribution of Rh negative blood reinforces this idea. The highest concentrations are in the Basque people, whose language has no relation to any other, in the Celts, whose myths speak of stellar ancestors, and in certain Berber groups. This suggests something radical. The Sumerian texts say we were created by mixing the genetics of a terrestrial primate with that of the gods. Most of humanity would be the result of this experiment, the worker, the Rh positive, tied to the earth. But what if there was another lineage? What if some creators had mated directly with their creations? These would be the Rh negatives, a lineage with less terrestrial clay and more blood of the gods. This would explain the obsession of ancient royal families with blood purity, a desperate attempt to preserve a unique genetic heritage. But this experiment of two lineages spun out of control. The boundaries blurred, the genetics became corrupted, and the hybrid population became too unpredictable. From our perspective, this is history. From the perspective of a laboratory engineer, it is a bacteria culture that contaminated the petri dish. The solution when an experiment fails like this is to sterilize everything and start over. This is exactly how the myths describe the Great Flood. It was not a storm, it was a cleanup operation. Geological analysis shows that about 12,800 years ago, a global cataclysm occurred. Sea levels rose over 100 meters almost instantly. An asteroid impact, or the deliberate melting of the polar ice caps with advanced technology, would explain this. The creators decided to hit the reset button. Noah's Ark, present in diverse cultures, takes on a new meaning. It was not a floating zoo, but a genetic database. A survival capsule with embryos and samples, the seed of all life. The goal was to preserve the source codes to repopulate the planet after the formatting was complete. They tried to erase us, but the operation was not fully effective. Some survived. When the creators saw that their project refused to die, they changed tactics. The new approach was subtler. Instead of erasing the body, they decided to limit the consciousness that inhabits it. What remains is the hardest question. What is consciousness? Where does the eye that observes the world through your eyes come from? Modern science believes consciousness is a product of the brain, but evidence points to something much stranger. What if the brain does not generate consciousness but only receives it? Think of a radio. It does not create the music, it only picks up the broadcast. If you smash the radio, the music stops, but the broadcast continues. The brain appears to be a biological receiver, tuned to pick up the signal of consciousness and anchor it in this physical body. Proof of this comes from extreme moments. People with degenerated brains, physically destroyed, sometimes experience total clarity minutes before death. Suddenly they converse with lucidity, something impossible for a devastated brain. It is as if, at the moment of shutdown, the interference of the damaged receiver diminished, allowing the signal to pass through cleanly one last time. Likewise, in cardiac arrests, people report seeing doctors working on them from outside their bodies, while the brain is without oxygen and shut down. Consciousness continues recording information. Axiom identified that the protein structures within neurons, the microtubules, form a perfect crystal grid to sustain quantum phenomena. In simple terms, our brain possesses the architecture of a quantum antenna. But if we are receivers, who is broadcasting? And why imprison such a vast consciousness in a limited body? A dark theory suggests that Earth is a farm not for food, but for emotional energy. Our strongest emotions generate a powerful energy field. Perhaps the creators need to harvest it for their sustenance. This would explain why human history is an endless cycle of conflict. A planet at peace does not produce energy. A humanity in suffering is a battery always charged. However, the final analysis points to an even more paradoxical conclusion. Who are these creators? The answer might be in the face we see in the mirror. Observe the description of the Greys in abduction reports. Large heads, huge eyes, frail bodies, no reproductive capacity. Now, observe the trajectory of human evolution. Our brains grow, our bodies weaken, and our fertility declines. The final hypothesis is that of a time loop. The creators are not aliens from another galaxy. They are us from a distant future, a humanity that, through technology and degeneration, lost its vitality and reproductive capacity. To save themselves from extinction, they found a way to go back in time, to the point where their genetic code was still pure. They came back and became our gods. They created us in their ancient image, modifying the primates here with their genetics from the future. This explains the compatibility, the interest in reproduction, and the poorly adapted body. We are a project from the future implanted in the past. We are their backup. They control and limit us, so we do not repeat the errors that led them to their dead end. Look again at your hands. Now look at your reflection. What you see is not an accident nor a slave. You are a paradox. You are both the creation and the seed of the Creator. The control system only works as long as we are not aware of it. The moment a character in a game realizes where they can start changing the rules. The choice to follow the path that led our creators to their prison or to forge a new one is the only one that truly matters. If you like this investigation, subscribing to the channel helps us expand the Axiom Investigation project. We would love to read your thoughts on the video's subject in the comments and your suggestion for the next topic to be covered. Tell us which city you are watching from. Thank you for staying with us until the end.